Hey, my friends. I have two decks that just showed up in the world today. I'm very excited about. I'm going to do a little first impressions moment with you for both of these. It'll be two separate videos. So let's get right in. I'm actually doing this now, and they'll probably be pretty quick because I have a couple client readings to do, and I want to use one of them for one of the readings. But I also wanted to do an unboxing. So I'm like, let's get in here. I just got home from Salem, by the way, which was a lot of fun. So the first one is the Sakki-Sakki Tarot, and the second one is the Dark Mansion. We're going to put the Dark Mansion aside. And this is the one I want to use for a client reading I have to do. So the Sakki-Sakki Tarot, the Dark Mansion I'll do, like I said, in a minute. That one, there's lots of looks at out there, but this one I haven't seen many of. And it's been on my radar for a while, and I've been sort of like, oh, I should get that one, and then I don't. And then someone mentioned on Instagram, oh, that's a limited edition, and they're not doing a reprint. So if you're going to get it, get it. I don't know how many are out there left, but I wanted to make sure I did. So this is by an Israeli artist, and the art is very cool, little strange, which I am here for. All right, let me actually zoom in a bit. Boom. All right, so I did unbox the box. It actually just came in an envelope, but it doesn't feel like the cards themselves are in a box. That's interesting. It says Good Karma on the front, and can I slide this off? And it's wrapped with imagery from the deck itself. So it's like Christmas or my birthday or both. Well, it's almost Halloween. We should get presents for Halloween. Yeah, it's not in a box. Interesting. So here's the here's the back. No, here's the back. Very cool. And then there's a little white book, and it says the Sakki-Sakki Tarot for the artist in each of us. Copyright 2004. So this has been around for a while. And the artist is Monica Cleo Sakki. And the text was edited by Carol Ann Buckley. And this is a self-published deck. And the artist statement says, I created the Sakki-Sakki Tarot out of a concentrated effort to understand people, situations, and events from various times and places. I wanted to express this exploration visually in ways that are at once both universal and very personal. Playing with pre-existing, raw, informal sketches scribbled by phone, my own found objects, scribbled by the phone, my own found objects, and transforming them into characters and scenes leads me to believe that everything is possible. And then there's like a what is tarot. The Sakki-Sakki Tarot incorporates the traditional familiar structure and divinatory meanings of the Rider-Waite-Smith, along with astrology, the Kabbalah, and personal symbolism. The colorful palette expresses multicultural traditions and invites the viewer on a journey of celebration and transformation. And then there's meanings. There's the Tree of Life and the Hebrew letters. And then there are the Sephirot descriptions, the planets in astrology, the zodiac signs. There's actually a fair amount here that's not traditional to a little white book. And then there's a spread called the Artist's Path spread. This is fun. Maybe we'll try this. The self-portrait, the now, the driving force, the muse, the block at work, the money, price, next step in the artist card. So maybe that's a large spread, but maybe if I remember, we'll do that. And then there are the card meanings. And there's an extra card called the Artist. So that's additional. And as an artist, as a writer, I will likely leave that in there. And then you can see in the guidebook, there actually are the astrological and Hebrew letter associations for each of the Trumpinos. And the Suit of Cups has the astrological association as well. So, for example, the Two of Cups, Venus in Cancer. So there we go. Let us look at what we're here for. The cards. All right, so Sakki-Sakki Tarot. And this has a little card that has the astrological associations. The cardstock is nice. It's matte. It's thin. I think some people may not love that. It's not a super expensive deck. The edges are a little rough with the cutting, but I imagine with shuffling that's not going to be an issue. The cards are smaller than traditional tarot size, which I do not mind one bit. It's not that much smaller, but there you go. That was the Albano weight. All right, let me zoom in a skosh more. Oops, let's go the right way, Jollivet. Here we go. Perp. All right, here we go. The Artist. Love this. It's a stage, an empty stage. This makes me feel really happy as a theater person. And this is associated with Chiron. Here's the Magician, the Magish, which I love. I love the art style. This is the High Priestess. I think this is another, this reminds me of Carol Burnett, and I have another, I think it's in the Inquarian Tarot one. The Empress or the High Priestess reminds me of Carol Burnett. So I now have 2 Carol Burnett cards, which I'm here for. Love this art so much. It's so great. Oh, the Empress. I love this deck so much. It reminds me of a lot of the decks that I love that have like really dope art that feel very handmade, like the Ellis deck. Trying to think of others. There are others that it's sort of prompting in my head, but here's the Emperor. They do have the Hebrew numbers on letters on them as well, and the astrological associations. Now, I do not read using either of those things, in part because I think if you do read the Rider-Waite-Smith system, the associations are baked into the cards. Like, you can't sort of not read with them, because what Pamela Coleman Smith and Arthur Edward Waite did was impose those associations on the cards. And so in the trumps and in the minors, you get their associations because the, for example, the esoteric titles of the minors that you see on the Crowley cards, I have a video on this, are baked into the Waite-Smith cards. You know, when you look at the Lord of Dominion as the 3 of Wands, I think it's the 3 of Wands is the Lord of Dominion, you see that in the image, and you see it in the energy of the paintings on the trumps. And so I feel like if you're reading the images, you probably are reading the astrological and other associations, Kabbalistic associations, but that's just me. Here's the Hierophant. The Lovers. I love this Lovers card. It's very kind of Marseille in a way. And so the people in this deck are not realistic. This Chariot. So great. I'm so excited to have this. The Strength card is pretty rad. The Hermit. I do like Hermits to have a face, but I'm all right with this. And I just, again, love this art style so much. The Wheel of Fortune. Justice. The Hanged Man. Death. I love this Death card. Temperance. The Devil. That's great. The Tower is so great. Oh my god, I love this deck so much. The Star. The Moon. So cool. The Sun. The Angel instead of Judgment. I could deal with Judgment being Judgment, but it's fine. The World. And then the Fool. So the Fool is at the end of the trumps here. Alrighty. So that's the trumps. And then we get the Ace of Rods. The 2. The 3. There are some headless people in the deck. I do not I do not know why that is the case, but I knew that going in, and I'm fine with it. Definitely is fine with me. There's a sort of a unusual amount of them, but again, fine with that. 4 of Rods. 5. Here's some more headless beings. 6. 7, another one. 8. I love this art style so much. 9, another headless person. It is interesting, in the suit of fire, because fire is so energetic. You can lose your head over it. So that's funny to me. and the 10. You know, if you have watched my videos before, you'll know that I talk about with Rider-Waite-Smith decks that I like elasticity. I don't like to necessarily have the traditional associations imposed on me when I'm doing a reading, because I like to be able to work with the numerological and elemental associations even as I'm drawing on the Rider-Waite-Smith images. And so this deck is another one that I feel like has some elasticity in it. The pictures are not so literal that I'm forced to sort of explain them away if what's really calling to me in the reading is the numerological and elemental association. Here's the page, the knight, the queen, and the king. And so now we get into coups, ace, some more headless folks in the 2, some more headless folks in the 3, 4, 5. I know I'm going to get comments that people will say, I like this deck, but I don't like the fact that there's headless people in it, which, you know, is reasonable, but it doesn't really bother me much. It's a stylistic choice. It's consistent. I don't know the reason behind it. Maybe it's in the little white book, but that's cool. That's the 8. But, you know I can see people saying, I like this, but it's the 9. And the 10. No deck is perfect. The more perfect a deck is, too, that when I think, oh, this deck is going to be perfect, like, the more likely it is I never use it, I've found. Because, I don't know. There's the Page of Cups, and the Knight of Cups, and the Queen of Cups, and the King of Cups. And now we get into swords. I have a friend who says it that way, swords. 2 of swords. 3, pretty traditional Rider-Waite-Smith, 3 through the heart. 4, 5, 6, more headless folks, 7, 8, 9, 10, page, knight, queen, like her glasses, king, and then finally coins. Here's the ace. There's the 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Ooh, everyone's headless in this one. 7, 8, 9, 10. They're all headless. And then the page, the knight, the queen, and the king. All right, that's the deck. All right, let's try this spread. Let's do it. I don't know if I have much room. That is the limitation of tables not designed for tarot. I am not a reader of spreads generally. I don't use spreads very much. Or if I do, I tend to design them myself. But I don't use generally 1 card per spot. It shuffles really nicely. The size is really great. Like, it's not too small, it's not too big. It's a nice size, I think, for most folks. Yeah, I don't tend to use spreads where 1 card stands in each position, because, as you well know, if you are familiar with my channel, I like the interplay of cards. So if I'm going to do a spread with positional meanings, I'll usually do 3 cards for each position. And you could do that for this, but it's a 10-card spread, which would be 30 cards, and I just do not have the space for that. But I like the idea of the spread, particularly because I've been trying to figure out how I balance my own artistic needs and wants and goals with the fact that when I get out of work at the end of the day, I'm tired and I don't want to after sitting at a desk all day, I don't want to sit at my desk again and write. So that's been tricky for me. And a lot of projects that I'm passionate about have been on hold, but this spread sort of arrived and announced itself as appropriate. So we're going to try it out. I also might normally shuffle before drawing each of the 10 cards, but that would take a long time. So I shan't. And a good mix here. I like to shuffle between each draw because I like to focus my intention on the specific question that position is answering, so that I can sort of, really focus each question, because really a spread with positional meanings is essentially a series of spreads that are laid out at the same time, like a mind, body, spirit spread is 3 separate spreads. You're just laying out the 3 spreads at the same time. But I actually am going to do this. I never really do this for folks. I think I did this a while ago in one of my videos, maybe on the Fountain Tarot. I did a Celtic cross for myself. But I usually, when I do these, I either have someone in mind or I just fake it. But this is for me because it's like super apropes. It's totes apropes, you guys. I love it when 40-year-olds talk like they're slightly outdated teenagers. I do love outdated slang. It's pretty dope. I'm going to pause and actually... Sometimes folks wonder when it's time to stop shuffling, and there are 2 ways that I have to tell me when it's time to stop. The first way is the more common, is that the deck actually will start being hard to, like I'll start making a mess of the cards, and when I have a couple bad shuffles in a row, that tells me that it's time to stop. The other way is that I can feel the electricity in my hands warm up, and so like at that moment I sort of know that the warmth in my hands feels focused, and so I feel like it's telling me it's time. Those are the 2 ways I do it. All right, so we have 10 cards, right? Oh no, it's a little bit less than that. 9. Oh, 9 plus the significator. I'm not going to use the significator. All right, so the first card is the self-portrait. We have the 6 of Swords for that. The second card is the Now. The third card is the Driving Force. The fourth card is the Muse. The fifth card is the Block. The sixth card is the Block at Work. 7 is Money. 8 is the Price. I'm going to stagger these because I think I can fit it. And 9 is the Next Step. And then 10, the Artist card. After dealing 9 cards of the Artist path, place the Artist card as a significator. That card is you. All right, I don't need to do that. All right, so let's see here. Let's read it. Let's see what this is telling me. So the Artist path spread. So the first card is the self-portrait. That's this. It's the 6 of Swords. What is your self-image as an artist? What is your relationship with this identity? So I have the 6 of Swords. That actually tells me I'm in a transitional phase, at least mentally. And that while I think good thoughts, the absence of action is like the movement toward, as I view myself, the movement is only mental. It's only existing in my mind. I'm not actually making any real physical progress. I'm only making mental progress, which makes a lot of sense to me. And I think good things. I think about how talented I might be, but I don't actually make the action happen. 2 is the Now, and that says, where are you now while looking at your path with an artist's eye? And that's the 7 of Cups. And that makes sense too, in a lot of ways, because I I do have a lot going on. You know, I have a day job, I have my tarot practice, these videos, I've got my writing career, I've got friends and family. And part of the struggle lately has been, how do I how do I do all these things? And am I trying to focus on too much? You know, do I have to take a break from doing the tarot videos, for example, in order to finish this play I'm working on? And then I have a novel I want to work on. Do I have to sort of back off and focus my energy? Sevens, to me, part of the idea of sevens is evaluating what's important, sort of internalizing and self-evaluating. And so the Seven of Cups is like, what do I really care about right now? And that's really well illustrated in the Rider-Waite-Smith of all of these cups. And it's like, what do I choose? You know, we have an expression in the corporate world: if everything's important, nothing's important. And that makes sense, right? Because if you're trying to get everything done, you can't really focus on any one thing. And so that is a pretty good depiction of where I am now. 3 is the driving force, and that would be the King of Rods. And that, what is the driving force? What feeds the internal springs of your creativity? I mean, that makes total sense too. I am a talented writer. I have this energy. I have this understanding of my skill. And knowing what I have makes me want to, you know, be recognized for it. You know, one of the things that I don't really talk about much with the Kings is ego, but it's there. You know, I am the leader. Why don't you worship me? And it's a very Leo energy. And so that is my driving force. I mean, getting praised is a driving force, but also putting out what I'm passionate about is a driving force as well. So 4 is the Muse. Interestingly, the Queen of Wands shows up there. And that makes sense too. I am inspired by helping other people reach their goals. But again, as a Leo, as someone who's, you know, wants to be recognized, not only do I want to help other people achieve their goal, I also want to be like recognized for helping people achieve their goals. So one of the things that inspires me is that. 5 is the block, and that's what is blocking your creativity. It's the 3 of Swords. I think that makes a lot of sense too. I've certainly been in a funk. And so like the heartbreak aspect of the Rider-Waite-Smith 3 makes sense. But also, if you think about 3 as growth, it's like there's so many ideas that are trying to grow and reach for attention in my brain that it's like, how do I narrow it down? The 3, you know, odd numbers are very disruptive. And even though 3 is growth is disruptive. There are growing pains. And so that's, you know, there's so many ideas that are growing. Again, it's like, how do you pick one? And then there's a lot of interesting pairings here in this spread. 6 is the block at work. So when you're blocked, what do you do instead of creating? How do you spend or squander your time? You have the Knight of Swords. The Knight of Swords, probably the least physically active of all the knights. He's going in his mind and running in circles. And that makes total sense. Next up is the money. What are your views on the relationship between money and creativity? I have the Queen of Cups. That's an interesting thing. I do care about making money for the work that I do, but I think ultimately sort of feeling good and nurturing what I love, is ultimately more important, I would say. That changes from time to time, usually when I get my bills paid. I would also say, you know, with the Queens, you have to recognize that caring for yourself, caring for your feeling, means that you do have to put yourself in a place where you're financially stable. And so though this isn't the Queen of Pentacles, for example, I think the Queen of Cups is emotionally intelligent enough to know that, you know, caring for anything means having an environment where you feel safe and where you feel comfortable. 8 is the price, what you need to give up in order to pursue your artist path. We have the Angel or Judgment. That's an interesting thing. Give up on something to pursue your artist path. You know, if we take Judgment literally, I think that it would be a difficult but interesting answer. What do you have to give up? Judgment. You have to stop the perfectionism, judging the work that you're doing, judging the stress you're under, judging yourself for what you're doing, and stop being awake at night thinking about it. You know, give up on the feeling that you have to constantly be at the call of creativity or of every project that demands your attention. And then finally, the next step. I love this. What do you need to do next to make sure you walk forth down the creative path you've chosen? It's the devil. The devil is always one of my favorite cards. I think he is much more than addiction, as we traditionally say. When the devil comes up in a positive spot like this, I think you have to go dark. I think you have to get animal. I think you have to sort of do what's sexy, what feels good, to the maybe sacrifice of other more noble causes. I think you have to get bacchanalian. I think you have to spill the wine and listen to the satyrs in the forest and dance naked in the woods. I think you just really have to go for it when the devil comes up as advice. So I love that. I love this spread. I think that's a pretty accurate picture of my artist path at the moment. I love the way that this has read, and it reads pretty quickly, I think, too, which is cool. And this is beautiful. I love this deck so much. So this is the Sakki-Sakki Tarot. It is illustrated and written by Monica Cleo Sakki, and I believe that it is a limited edition, but I will post the information down below. Very, very cool deck. One I think hasn't gotten enough attention, and I'm very happy to have it in my collezione. So I hope you enjoyed this, and hope you're well, and be good. Bye.